It's the cry of generation. It's a stirring in our soul. It's dreams still in focus. It's hope still whole. For children that are and those who will be, our destiny is justice for once, for all, forever. Let it be. No more delays, denials can ignore our voices, nor suppress our choices. We come for all that God has gave, unashamed descendants of the indigenous immigrants and the once enslaved. For children that are and all those who will be, our destiny is justice for once, for all, forever. Let it be. Liberation when we read, love when we lead, moving at the speed of student needs, pushing against the abundance of oppressive greed. For children that are and all those who will be, our destiny is justice for once, for all, forever. Let it be. Right, we're here on the Justice Cast with my guest, another Justice Warrior, Clarence Burton. He is, what is your current title, sir?
Chief Executive Officer.
CEO of Denver Families for Public Education, and you guys also have a C4 Denver
Families Action.
Denver Family Action, right? Yeah. And so we'll talk a little bit about that. But Clarence, tell me a little about your story. I know a little bit about it, but what anchors you in this work for justice? And it's got to be what got Clarence to this point in his life where he's a person who's fighting for justice.
I mean, I love that you start with that question because it always reminds me of the Maya Angelou. It's like, who cares what you know until they know why you care?
Right.
And, I always start that story with my own experience in education, my own experience as a kid. When I was growing up, I'm one of 8 kids. And
one of 8?
One of 8.
Where are you at in the ranking?
I'm second oldest boy.
Oh.
5 sisters, 2 brothers.
Okay.
So
I didn't know there was 8. I don't know why I thought there was just 5. There's 8.
8.
Okay.
Big family.
Okay.
And it was a lot of dysfunction. We were always in and out of foster care, in and out of child protective services. But school was this place where I found a sense of belonging. And second grade, testing into the gifted and talented program, you're good at the puzzles, right?
Yeah.
And doing well in school. And so even though we moved around a lot, school was this place where I was like, you could be good at this thing.
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in San Diego.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And even if you're poorer than the other, little kids, you could be validated. Like school was this place for validation. And that experience, was consistent for me. I usually joke I went to every civil rights school where I grew up. I went to MLK, I went to JFK, I went to Rosa Parks, I went to 9 different schools by the time
the universe was speaking to you, right?
It was in middle school, my family became homeless. I ended up in long-term foster care and ended up with a family. For the first time, I was going to a school with kids that didn't look like me or from a different economic background, just a few miles away from where I was growing up. And I'll never forget the experience looking up at the whiteboard, first period, first class, an English class, and the teacher gave an assignment, find everything that's wrong with the sentence. And I was looking up at the sentence and I had no idea how to do the problem. And all the other kids had their head down. So you can probably imagine, I'm looking around at the other kids. They don't look like me. I grew up going to schools with black and brown kids. I internalized it at the time, not as something that's wrong with the system. I didn't understand that. I thought something was wrong with me. And I was fortunate, over time I got caught up and I got to be the things that we celebrate. As the first in my family to graduate from high school, graduate from college. But I became radicalized around this idea of educational inequity, that I could be doing well in one neighborhood at one school, being told I'm doing a great job. And just a few miles away, go to a different school and had no idea what was going on. And what keeps me kind of going in this work, what brings me to it, is knowing that every day in the city, there are kids who go into a classroom, look up, have no idea how to solve the problem, how to do the assignment, and they think that something is wrong with them, not that something is wrong with the system.
Right. And that right there, well, as they say in church, that'll preach right there. So something's wrong with, let's first start there. We have a lot of black boys, a lot of brown boys, a lot of black girls, a lot of brown girls who are internalizing that something is wrong with them, right? And we see that in some of the narrative that's put out there, that it's these kids in those neighborhoods, and we can't dare say that it's the system that's intentionally designed for their failure and oppression, Um, what does that do? Speak to me about that young man who was dealing with that internalization. What process did you go through? What supports maybe were around you that kind of woke you up?
Yeah.
You know.
Well, it started for me actually in foster youth advocacy and organizing. I got connected in high school with a foster youth advocacy program, and started having conversations with other foster kids around the city around what we were experiencing, how we could make changes based on those experiences. And then we got to go around to local city council, state legislature, flew up, to the state capitol. And actually got to see a couple things over the years go from our conversations in these rooms to policy advocacy to real policy that got passed. And for me, that was the spark.
And you were in high school?
That was high school,
yeah,
and I continued it through college.
Okay.
That was agency, it was self-determination, it was not just being, a passive participant in this system that wasn't working for me, but that I could actually work alongside others within my community to change the world around me.
Who spoke that in your life?
I mean, there's a few. I think of Kareem Boris,
Okay.
was the executive director at the time of this program I joined was called LEAP. It was Leadership Empowers All Possibilities. And so that was the first organizing work I ever did as a teenager, was with LEAP for foster youth. I also think of Myra Gonzalez.
Okay.
She was a counselor that specifically supported foster youth. I was fortunate to get plugged in some programs that were all about foster youth finding success through education, college access, supporting youth through college, and knowing that the statistics are terrible. At the time, I'm sure it's very similar now, less than 2% of kids who entered Child Protective Services would go on to receive a college degree.
Yeah.
And so that was the statistic I remember being confronted with as a teenager.
Right.
I remember Myra, she was one of those counselors that could look at a kid, and kind of look right through you, right at the center. And, I struggled a lot with seeing in myself the ability to succeed in this world. And she always pushed me. And
Nobody's got me choked up yet, Clarence. I'm just so, so that's it. Talk to me though. You got 7 other siblings.
Mm-hmm.
What were the outcomes? Are they all Clarence Burtons? Right. What were the realities that you had to deal with your siblings? Was learning?
I mean, everyone's got their own story.
Yeah.
I think many of us, especially early on in our education, did well at school. That's kind of the thing. I was always coming after my sister, and it was always the thing of like, hope you're as good as Sharita. It was always like the, as you, I'm sure know, and have worked with kids who have gone through like the system, right? For a big family especially, it's hard because no one's going to take in 8 kids. And so you kind of go into different group homes, we like to call them like children's centers and things now, like orphanages, right? Like these places. Foster care placements. And so of those 8 kids, I mean, everyone has their own story. And it got really complicated when we were homeless and kind of split up. And so through the journey, I have some siblings now who have followed sort of the path similar to me and graduated from high school, went on, got their degree. I have some siblings that are still working on that right now, and I have other siblings that have kind of gone their own path. I'm proud of every single one of them because we've all had tremendous challenges, and sometimes the success is just getting up every day. You keep going.
Justice in that through that lens of the injustice that kids who are in the foster care system, kids who are homeless in our communities. We know that we dealt with that a lot when I was running schools and doing public schools, and just the injustice that all kids experience, but specifically to your point, kids who are most marginalized at times. You're now, fast forward to where you are now. You're big time CEO, of one of our advocacy organizations, one of our organizing organizations that helps to mobilize families for justice. Let me just put it that way. How easy is that work?
I mean, in some ways, it's incredibly easy. In some ways, it's difficult.
Yeah.
The difficulty is that systems don't like to change. Yeah. And you're always going up against that when you're trying to change.
Why is that? Why is that, Clarence? Why? I mean, we always, you know, I love this. We don't want to compete. Like, we don't want to cause conflict, right?
Yeah.
But it's not like these systems exist independent of humans, right? It's not like some, you know, there's this line that's drawn, and us humans are not strong enough to defeat it, and so.
Well, this is the truth. Right?
Yeah. So
systems are resistant to change because certain people benefit from the system as it is.
Right.
There's a book I read recently. I definitely recommend it, Poverty by America.
Yeah.
And in it, of course, the title is talking about poverty.
Yeah.
But I think you can apply it to you can apply it to education, and frankly, these things are all connected. And there's a moment in the book where the author says, we have to confront basically the reality that the reason why these systems don't change, the reason why we have a class of people in this country who are habitually in poverty despite the fact that we're the wealthiest country in the world, is because many of us benefit from the system as it is. And so I think that is the difficulty you get over, is it's not just the faceless person. I think we're all in this together, right? And the first person you have to look at is in the mirror, which is, am I resisting change to this system because in some way I benefit from the privilege as it is currently designed?
No, Stephen, one of our other folks that's on our podcast actually this week that's coming out, he and I go back and forth all the time where I say, it's not a poverty problem, it's a greed problem, right? That we always look at it through the lens of those people are struggling. Well, why? Why are those people struggling? Why do those people not have clean water, right? Why do those people not have access to, why are they living through deserts, right? Yeah. Who is benefiting from them being in an education desert, right? Mm-hmm. We've talked about this, and who is benefiting from black and brown kids? And we don't have to, you know, we know, right? There are people who are making money off of the poor conditions that kids are living in, right? That they're learning in. I think that's a clear fact, right? We're not here to bash anybody with those. That's the truth that we deal with. So how do we move expeditiously? How do we move faster than where we've been? I mean, I remember Dr. King, 1963, said the word wait. He's like, we hate that word, right? Mm-hmm. Because he says, inevitably, black folks have understood that the word wait means never, right? Mm-hmm. And to me, having been in this work for so long, it's like, there's been a lot of waiting, and to me, it is definitely starting to resonate as never, mm-hmm. right? How do we change that paradigm so the kids who are now coming up in some of the same systems that we came up in, how do you, from Denver Family's perspective, how are you guys engaging in such a way that wait does not mean never, but it means now? Mm-hmm. You know?
Yeah, Dr. King said, no man has the right to put a timeline on another man's freedom.
That's, yes.
And it makes me think of another quote. I brought a book for the Justice Library from James Baldwin. He talked about how if you want to know what justice is, what you do is you don't ask those who have privilege. Yeah. You don't ask those who are in the middle class, right, in the professional class. Right. You ask those who are unprotected. Right. Their testimony on justice, and that's what justice is. Right. And so to your question of, how do we do that? I think we have to start at the ground level. You have to start with those directly impacted by the policies that we're making. And when I think about the work that our organization does, we fundamentally believe that the solutions to the challenges we're facing already exist in community. Yeah. We just need folks to listen.
Yeah, let me throw this out though. I mean, both of us, two men of color, two CEOs of our organization. The reality is that is not the norm, right? Also, neither one of us are independently wealthy. I don't know if you are, Clarence. I know maybe something happened.
I don't play the lottery, so probably not anytime soon.
But we're not independently wealthy, so we are very much vulnerable, I think, to the movements of those who definitely have privilege and have resources, right? I've lived this journey in education to where, hey, 1 year people are concerned about early childhood, so the money goes there. 1 year they're concerned about middle years and the money goes there. 1 year they're concerned about high school and the money goes there. But there's never been like this stable funding support for what you're talking about and what we are working towards. It's like, who is funding justice work at the level it needs to be funded, at the pace it needs to be funded, so that we're not continuing to have these conversations like we see in Denver from the Kids Count report that 59.3% of kids are not meeting expectations in language arts, or 68.8% of kids are not meeting expectations in math. I mean, to me, if I was in an emergency room and those were my stats, 68% of me was bleeding out, right? There would be a level of urgency by those doctors to get me stabilized, to save my life, to get the bleeding to stop, right? Then to stabilize me so they could really get to in there to work. Where is that urgency? Where is that funding that says, hey, it's going to take 20 years. So Vernon and Clarence, here's 20 years worth of funding for all that you need to do to get this situation fixed. Who's telling us that?
I mean, you hit the nail on the head, right? Like that, I mean, this is long-term work, right? It needs a long-term vision and long-term investment. And I would add to what you said by saying, I think a shift we need to make in our mindset around this, and folks who, whether you hold power, whether it's political, whether it's economic, whatever it may be, is to stop thinking of allocating those resources to solutions and start allocating them to conditions.
Yeah.
I know it keeps coming to mind. I think it's the context here. I keep quoting like civil rights leaders, but
it's almost schools you went to.
I got another one that just came to mind from Malcolm X, which he said that he fundamentally believed if you provided a space for people to understand the conditions that were impacting them and what was causing those conditions, they will create the program, and where you have that program, you will create the action for the change that's needed.
Black Panther Party, right?
Right.
Kids are starving, right? Black Panther Party said, we can feed our kids, right? And pretty much created the lunch program that we see today, right? So we know that. And to your point, it all is connected, right? There are those who are benefiting from conditions as they are. And so then we're saying, hey, fundamentally, support and fund us shifting conditions so that more of the children, all of the children who have been marginalized, oppressed, left out, can now experience these things. I would think, maybe, if I was a billionaire, I would think that is actually going to make me more money if more kids are able to thrive and we're able to see them realize their potential. And I don't know. There's sometimes where I'm very optimistic in this work, and you don't stay in this work if you don't have a level of optimism. But there's sometimes where I just wonder, do the people that you and I often sit in rooms with, that we talk to about policy, that we talk to about, do they really want the same conditional shifts that we talk about? I don't know. I'm asking you. Do you?
I mean, I'm also an optimist,
Yeah.
and I think especially for folks who are engaged, there's many ways you can spend your time, and so whether you're at a philanthropic, a political, an advocacy level, if you're engaged, in this work, I believe the vast majority of people want to see kids do better than they're doing now. See change, and so that's a good place to start.
Yeah.
And what we have to do is.
Do you think they're not experiencing though the level of discomfort? I think there's something about the civil rights movement to this point that when I look back in the 50s, 60s, and even the early 70s, there was a level of discomfort within the country. Maybe we're there again, right? But there was a level of discomfort that wouldn't let people sit idle, right? And I think that maybe what has happened is, Dr. King, tranquilized by gradualism, right? I think that we've been a little bit tranquilized by gradualism. We see graduation rates creep up, but we ignore that the remediation rate is still as bad as it was, right? We see in one district that we've had the superintendent on here, we see a district celebrate hey, 1% growth, and they set a target of 4% growth, knowing that even if they grow at 4% over the next 4 years, the kids, if you trace that, track that, trend that out, those kids are never going to be on grade level by the time they graduate, but you're still going to give them a diploma that says that they're ready, right? So
there's, I think that sense of urgency that many don't feel, that's right. I think you've got that right. And, what did Malcolm X say? Like, I'm just trying to tell you there's a bomb in your house.
Right.
Like, that was his message. I'm just trying to tell you there's a bomb in your house.
It's tick, 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 right?
You need to diffuse the bomb.
Right.
I'm just the messenger, right? And when it comes to education, yes, I think there are some folks who maybe don't feel that sense of urgency. But what I'll say is locally and nationally, our institutions, you look at polling, we released some polling earlier this year. It shows when it comes to our public education system, when it comes to our governance, people are very unhappy.
Yeah.
And you can debate on why that is and who's to blame and all that. But the fact is, people are unhappy, parents, especially those close to, parents and teachers who know what's going on, very unhappy with the current state of things. And that mirrors a trend across this country of discontent about the state of our public institutions.
Yeah.
And so the question for us is, how do we move with urgency to diffuse that bomb? What do you think the right pathway to do that is? And it can't be just doing things the way we've done it before.
No, I'm glad you talked about elected stuff because, I know that some of the work that that you do on the C4 side is to make sure that we cultivate great people to get elected, right? To make sure that we got the right candidates up there, because it matters, right? But our friends at Murmuration put out this report last year, 2024, about barriers to civic engagement among Gen Z, right? A quote that always jumps out at me when I read this. First, let me read these stats. 32% of Gen Z say that the federal government does not make much of a difference in their lives. 30% of Gen Z say their lives are worse because of government. And conversely, only 13% say their lives are better because of government. Then this quote, he says, honestly, this is a young black college educated voter. Honestly, we are putting too much trust in government. It's very hard to reach elected officials. I do think sometimes they forget that they are public servants and not celebrities. And they haven't done anything for our parents' parents, and even locally, it's just hard to reach the freaking elected people, right? So if there's this much, disenfranchisement from Gen Z, there's definitely that from Gen X and all of the others, right? How do we convince people to two things? Elect people, participate in the voting process, or two, run for office.
Well, the first is
Please solve the problem while we're on
the first thing you have to do when you hear numbers like that, hear sentiments like that, is acknowledge it, right? Because I think some would resist that, would want to, give all the reasons why that person's wrong. And instead, if we're seeing these national trends, especially young people that are coming up, they're saying this system isn't working for me.
Right.
I don't believe I'm going to be better off than my parents were, or have the same opportunities. And they want to disengage. And we know the threat there, like the real threat for our community, for our state, for our country, is authoritarianism. Like, let's just say it, like what we're seeing right now, right? Which is I don't believe in our public institutions. I don't believe in the democratic process. It doesn't seem to be working. It leaves you susceptible to someone come in and say, I'll solve all your problems.
Right.
And by the way, it's those people's fault over there.
Right.
If we just get them, then things will be better.
Right.
So that's the bomb that's in the house,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And so I think we have to acknowledge when we hear that is first thing you say to that person is, you're right.
Right.
Like, this country is inequitable.
Right.
Things are not working the way they should to provide you with the opportunities and the trust that if you engage in the system, if you work hard, like you'll be better off than if you don't. So we have to acknowledge that, and then we have to have an aspirational message. I do believe like there are two choices in our politics that we have, and I kind of call it it's the politics of cynicism versus the politics of hope. And we see a lot of engagement in the politics of cynicism.
And I'll say the politics of hope definitely probably comes from your time with Obama. Just most folks don't know that about your history.
Right. Those spread false rumors. This
Yeah. That's Obama's cousin, right?
I say, I heard Clarence say he worked with Obama.
Well, Clarence, we look at this stuff, and I love that there's cynicism and there's hope, and I think there's the I think in between those two, there's a group that's stagnant, right? And I think it's if you look at the leader, they said like you got 10% that are probably cynics, then you got 10% that are probably hope folks, and then you got 80% there that can be pulled either way. And then what's really going on is you got the cynics and the hopes trying to pull these people in one direction or other. And right now, there's a lot of cynicism out there. There's a lot of pull from the cynics who are saying, nah, to your point, they're the threat. Those people are the enemies. We must get rid of them. They're in the way. Never owning that the problem is systemic and that this system is not broken. It is actually doing what it's designed to do, right? And so I appreciate that you're one of those people who are trying to help us see that, and to, as we say, like with the systems of change, is like the real system of change is like you said, that mindset, right? We can change people and policies and how we fund things, but the relationships still stay the same, and the power dynamics still stay the same. Why? Because the mindsets are still the same. And so I appreciate your commitment to justice to change those mindsets. Your book that you're bringing to us, what's the book? Show me the book that folks know.
Book club moment?
Yeah, this is the book club moment. You're adding this to our Justice Library.
So this is The Fire Next Time by James Baldwin.
Yeah.
It's something I first read it when I was in college. And it hit me it landed with me and resonated, but I reread it this year, and we're in a different moment in the country. I'm in a different moment in my life.
Yeah.
And I was amazed. The first essay in it is a letter from James Baldwin to his nephew on his nephew's birthday. It's the 1968, right? And he's talking about the conditions of black people in the country at that time and the story of how we got there. Yeah. And what stood out to me is that while the moment is different, when he was writing that letter, many of the same challenges, the same themes, and the same opportunities exist today.
Yeah.
And this is something that just came to me as I was thinking back to your question around what do we do to motivate people? Like, what do we do to get them engaged, whatever that looks like? And what I'll say is there's a lot of conflict right now in our country and in our communities. When you look through history, every time there is a major leap forward where we see progress, when you zoom in, it is these moments where there is immense conflict, and people don't know which way things are going to go. Yeah. So while I am just like all of us looking at the news that's happening around the country, the news we see, the things we experience every day in our community in Denver, and feeling challenged by it. I also have that hope of knowing we are in a moment right now where people are looking and saying, I want tomorrow to be better.
Yes.
And what we need is for leaders to step up and say, I will be part of making that happen.
Well, I want tomorrow to be better. I'm glad we're in the boat together. I'm glad we're in this work together. And so let's keep going. And let's see justice realized in our time. Thank you for joining us this week on the Justice Cast. If you are moved and inspired by what you heard this week, we need you to do justice by doing 3 things. Number 1, like and share this episode with your friends and family and network. Number 2, sign and share the Do Justice Pledge. And 3, join us for an upcoming Do Justice action. You can find those listed on our website at www.faithbridgeco.org. That's www.faithbridgeco.org. Remember, the world we believe for is possible. Do justice.